All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Fallon, and I am so excited to have you join us as we dive into the hottest topic in the industry, peptides. Tonight, we'll cut through all of that noise and get down to what peptides actually are, what the FDA has approved and hasn't approved, where the legal exposure sits, and how to advise your patients while protecting your license with confidence. Before we dive in, I want to share a little bit with you about us at Empire Medical Training. Sorry, guys. Oh, right. We have been a trusted resource at Empire Medical Training for medical professionals for over 28 years. Our purpose is simple. That is to empower clinicians with the training and support needed to confidently expand into those new procedures. We offer training nationwide, which allows you to minimize disruptions to your practice. And you can earn CME from programs focused on safe, effective, and evidence-based clinical practice. You have access to membership packages that create an in-depth educational plan for your growth. Most importantly, though, you get to practice those hands-on techniques with real patients for that true procedural mastery. We do offer a collection of training academies that are designed for comprehensive professional development. These are structured to meet your needs as medical providers, whether you're entering a new specialty or strengthening those existing skills. Our academies provide you a clear, guided route to becoming a more confident and capable practitioner. If you know us, we are going to make this an engaging webinar. So please feel free to ask any questions as they come to you. You can put these questions into the Q&A box. If you do not see that Q&A box along the bottom row of icons, there is a circle with 3 dots that says more. If you click on that, you will find that Q&A icon. For everyone who is joining us tonight, we will be offering you a special promotion just for you. As well, we will be raffling off one of our virtual Physicians Medical Weight Loss courses, which goes perfectly along with these peptides, to one lucky winner at the end of the webinar. Please let me know in the chat if you would like to be entered to win that course by telling me where you are joining us from tonight. With that being said, it is my pleasure to introduce our founder, president, and visionary behind Empire Medical Training, Dr. Stephen Cosentino. He is a board-certified family physician with more than 28 years of clinical experience. Dr. Cosentino is widely regarded as one of the most influential leaders in aesthetics and regenerative medicine. Through his passion for innovation and unwavering commitment to excellence, Dr. Cosentino has empowered thousands of medical professionals to elevate their practices and redefine that standard of patient care. Dr. C, how are you doing this evening?
Hi, how's it going? And thanks for that great introduction. That was very, very sweet and very kind. You actually forgot pain management. I want to say, but I only mention that because pain management actually is where I started with doing, all these interventional procedures and so forth. And that's really what came to the idea because I'm a family practitioner. So back then, the idea was, am I allowed to do these procedures? I'm just, I'm a family practitioner and I met a physiatrist, and he shared with me what we all know now that yes, we're all qualified to do what we're trained in, and it's important to get good training. But it's actually where we started this. The first courses that we did were in interventional pain management, and we still have those very same courses now. But the topic tonight is extremely exciting. Okay, it's going to be a lot of fun. Obviously, it's about peptides. Right? Peptides, it's just explosive, like. How does this get to us? It's getting to us because patients are asking, right? It's not like we have to educate them so much. They're asking for us. They want this information. So the demand is so strong, and it's such a great specialty. Like the same thing with aesthetics, and the two go hand in hand. Functional medicine and aesthetics go so well together. But it's just that this is a field where patients get better. It's something that's enjoyable. But just like aesthetics, I remember so many times that practitioners come to me and they're scared or they're worried about doing, let's say, fillers because they're worried about some of the complications. And they're like, what if I inject in the wrong area? And the answer to that is the education. Take the anatomy course, learn the anatomy of the face, and learn the right way to do these injections. Well, it's the same thing with peptides. Okay, and peptides you don't just go into and and it's funny, there's courses that are out there that teach peptides like as if it's a cookbook. They say, okay, so they were going to learn about BPC 157, NAD, and terzepatide, and semaglutide, and all these things, and they just give you, like dosage and how to use each one. But there's so much more to it than that. And I got to say, I'm very, very proud of the curriculum that we have. Tonight is just a webinar, but we have a very, very comprehensive curriculum. And as a medical trainee, I always say that I've got the greatest job in the world because I'm in the middle of all this. I'm involved in the development of the curriculum. And one of the hardest parts that we do at M5 is locating, screening, and working with the best of the best practitioners. These are, for the most part, physicians and some of the practitioners. And I was asked recently, or told recently, not to keep saying the best, okay? So now I'm going to explain to you what I mean by the best, okay? The best is, it's not supposed to be so subjective. The best is meaning that these are physicians that have practices that are very, very successful, okay? Their patients say that they're the best. They have outstanding reviews. They've got the experience for many, many years. They're not startup practitioners. They've got multiple practices. And a lot of you probably only know the two instructors that we have tonight, Dr. Civelli and Dr. Crowley. Dr. Crowley is our chief medical officer, our chief aesthetics officer. Dr. Civelli also has multiple practices. Dr. Crowley has multiple practices in aesthetics and functional medicine. So you're really learning like from some of the most qualified individuals, and something that I take a lot of pride in. So anyway, tonight we're gonna, there's so much to talk about, and that's why we have this massive curriculum. We have a couple of different options. Maybe Fallon will tell you later, or maybe not. I'm not sure if she has time, but a couple of different options for you, depending upon the pathway that you want to choose. But for tonight, we're gonna focus a little bit on some of the regulatory matters because they're important. They're not to alarm you or to get you scared or anything, but it's just the more that you know, the better you're going to feel, the confidence. And, this is a safe area of medicine to practice, but you want to follow, like all areas of medicine, you want to do things correctly. And I think if you do things correctly, everybody's going to benefit. So it's a really exciting specialty, but you definitely have to know what you're doing and you have to learn these things. And it's out there for you to learn, and we have a lot of good resources for you. So without talking too long, I want to hand you back to Fallon, and she's going to introduce Dr. Civelli and Dr. Cohen.
Well, thank you, Dr.
Before you go away, Steve, I just want to thank you so much for facilitating this, right? As Empire, you really have a ton of things over the years, and being part of that and being part of that team is an amazing opportunity. And so we've been talking about this for a little while now, and actually you've offered some form of peptide education through Empire for many years, but we know that this field has exploded. There's new coming out, there's new regulation, so many new things to learn. And so being on kind of the leading edge of that and developing this, I can't wait to share all the new things we have coming in the next year, right? The new courses, the new certification. So you really have a lot of great ideas that we'll share little bits of it tonight with the people that are on the webinar. We have a big group. And so, but just before you go away, I want to thank you for hosting this and for making this possible.
Thank you, Dr. Crowley. And you're right. We've been teaching peptides for several years now. It's some areas of medicine, of course, you have to update and so forth, but this is definitely one area of medicine you get constantly. We have a program to constantly update our practitioners that are part of our memberships and part of our team. It's an area that changes so frequently, especially with the regulation. But thank you for that.
All right.
Both you guys, and thanks for being there.
Welcome. I see you soon. Fallon, I'll give it back to you now.
Perfect. Like Dr. C said, I will be sharing with you guys a little bit about our peptides courses following Dr. Crowley and Dr. Civelli. So stick around for that because you're definitely going to want to hear about our special that we're going to offer you guys. But without further ado, our speakers tonight are Dr. Valerie Civelli, who is a double board certified physician and clinical innovator, as well as a respected entrepreneur, educator, and a researcher. We also have with us tonight Empire Medical Training's very own Chief Medical Officer and as Director of Aesthetics, like Dr. Cosentino mentioned, Dr. Chris Crowley. He is a respected physician, an educator, and a clinical leader, as well as a recently published author. With that, guys, I'm going to turn it over to you guys.
All right. Well, thank you, Fallon. And again, thanks for hosting this and facilitating this. I couldn't be more excited to be here tonight with Dr. Civelli.
Me too.
Valerie, maybe just a few months ago, not that long ago, at a training in California, and we kind of clicked right away. And I recognize your ability, Valerie, to really connect with other people. So you were there as a student, but you were connecting with other students and you were able to really engage them and lead a conversation. And the more I got to know about you and your practice, and small side note, we're from the same town, same little town, and you're about to reopen a practice here using specializing in functional medicine and peptides.
Yes.
You have a practice in California, one in Florida.
Yes.
Quite busy, being bi-coastal there. But the more we connected, I was like, I really see a lot of value that you could bring to the Empire audience. So,
I love
you've done a
that.
great job. You filmed some like amazing content for us that I can't.
I haven't even seen it. I'm nervous, but I had such a blast.
Yeah, it was fun. So, thanks for being on this tonight. We do have a lot of things. Definitely, you're the expert here, not me. We played a little bit in peptide practice, but nothing to the extent of what you do. And I'm learning as much as the students here. So tonight, as we go through this, we kind of coordinated the presentation, and we want to talk about regulations of peptides and what we're using out there. But I recognize that you're definitely the expert in this area. And what I want to do is represent from a practice owner, a provider standpoint, some of the questions that I think all of us have as we try to navigate this maybe regulatory complex area, and how we've designed ways to help you integrate these or help people integrate these into their practice.
Absolutely.
So, I'll go through the slides. Definitely, guys, I want you to keep the questions coming. That's going to be the best for you to get out of the way you get the most out of this tonight. So put those in that Q&A box. We'll get through them at the end. We'll make sure that we stay on here. I've got a little bit of extra time allotted before we have to kind of end the webinar, but certainly we'll try to get as much answered as we can. So Valerie, you're in a fancy studio there, like I'm in.
I wanted a good first experience here. And I didn't want you guys to have to deal with poor audio or I don't know how to work this. So, yes. Oh, thank you so much. Perfect. Thank you for all the introductions, by the way. I really, really appreciate it. I also just want to position myself as somebody who just really loves this field. So I'm a person who started out just fascinated with this as a personal journey, and then learning the science, learning all of this stuff for myself, and then for your friends and your family. They always start first, and then your clients. It's it's so exciting.
A lot of attendees on here tonight. Some of them I recognize names, but a lot I don't. But many of them get to know me through the Empire trainings. And so my husband and I started this business, our aesthetic business, almost 20 years ago now. And we started with an Empire course in Botox and fillers. It was simple as that. And then over the years, we were able to kind of expand and grow, relocate to Florida. And he does the bulk of all the clinical work at the practice. He pretty much runs it day to day. And I get to meet a lot of you guys and kind of look at new courses and new development and see what we want to bring back to our clinic. And it's one of the things where I've been incredibly hesitant. So any of the students on here that know me or been around me before know that I am really real averse. We've built a fully compliant practice to the best of my ability. I know that there are always like these, landmines we get to try our best to do everything like right by the book. And so when I hear about things that may be a little bit tricky on the regulatory side or a little bit scary, I tend to shy away from it. But as Dr. Cosentino mentioned, there's such an explosion in this industry, in this area of peptide therapies, that the patients are really demanding it. And so do you embrace this?
I was thinking that too. I run towards it out of curiosity. Yeah.
This right out of training. I have your slide up here with your credentials and your training, and look 20. You look not old enough to be on the medical.
I love that. No filter. I did. So my third year as a resident, I decided for my elective to get into some of the fun things, and this is part of what I found to be fun. So just, I would say, like most people, you try it on, you go to a conference, you see what really sticks, what you feel really inspired about, because medicine is so vast, right? There's so much that we can do, so much, especially family medicine. We do everything for every single age, head to toe. And in a sense, that's good for my personality because I get, I guess, bored easily. I have a broad interest, but when it comes to peptides, I valued the science of it, the innovation, I mean, really everything that you really described as my personality. It was a really good fit.
Yeah. And so I think we probably have a mix of our audience tonight that probably have both, right? We have people
Yeah,
that are very conservative and they're interested in it,
rightfully so.
learn about this. And
Yep.
so, that's kind of what I want to lead with. This is, my slide, a little bit about me. I've, again, been doing this for a while. Really, my specialty is aesthetics. Done little bits of peptides, lots with like GLPs, those peptides, and a little bit with skin and aesthetic peptides. But, really, as we go through this tonight, where I think we need to just start the conversation is a simple explanation of what peptides are. So we hear them used for so many different things. So maybe we just start with a simple definition of.
I like that. So I think of the definition of peptides as really a structure, and structure gives you function. So an amino acid chain less than 40 is your structure. That is a peptide. And when you drop that into the body in a biological setting, it can act on receptors, it can modulate downstream. You can really see how it interacts with the body. Insulin is one great example.
Yeah, and so as we look at these, we realize really that there are these small structures, and we'll get into some different categories on the next slide. But it really, that once we just think about it as a short amino acid chain that's going to go work on or stimulate something in some way, we can start to open up our minds to think about where all that science can be applied and where it's been applied in other areas. As we go
Yes.
throughout this, in addition to defining it, we have to talk things. Fear. What is fear? What is fact? What are some of the FDA? Most of our audience is US based, but
Yeah, I saw that. It is. Yes. S-
a conversation around some of the challenges we've had in the US and certainly bring an international perspective because that's so important to our audience. GLP-1s, and I think a lot of people on here I know had GLP-1s compounded and was using them in their practice. And then had to like reconfigure. We all had to kind of come up with different plans. There were some things that shut down that. We're going to go over some legal risks, where you may have to look at some pitfalls. I mean, that's where we anticipate. Obviously, none of us have a crystal ball, but we can kind of make some pretty educated guesses on what's coming next and be ahead of that. And then go over kind of a compliance roadmap of how you can integrate this and be compliant and successful. Finally, we'll end with some of the new things that we're doing at Empire for certification on our pathways and how we can, start with just a pretty basic class. Not basic in terms of short, it's very comprehensive, but it's the basic science of peptides and how we lead into case-based discussions, troubleshooting, and really expanding to not so commonly used peptides. Do you want to take a minute maybe and go over this? We talked about it via short chains of amino acids, but we've kind of divided some of the more common ones on this slide into areas.
Yes, these are definitely the more popular ones. I mean, there's a long list of different options, but these I would say are the most commonly used and the most requested. So the first one, your BBC TB500, that is highly, highly desired. A lot of good things are being said to have been done with this peptide. Healing as far as like musculoskeletal injuries, ligaments, even lung repair. There's just a lot of different studies that are out there. I would love to start a library with Empire, just, to access all of these things. But the healing and recovery, definitely those two. That's called the Wolverine stack. I don't know who started that name, but if you hear people say Wolverine, this is what it is. And BPC by itself really is pretty effective, but Anyway, so that's category 1, growth hormone. That's the category. You can see there's a few that fit into that. And then for weight loss, the GLPs, action on that receptor in the brain, the stomach, semaglutide, tirzepatide, retatrutide, definitely trending, and it's in the Triumph trials right now. Cognitive longevity, Cimax, there's Selenk as well, Epithelon, Motzi. These are all functional peptides, right? So they have an action at different sites of the body. And so really seeing where they can plug and play, and it's typically a linear dose dependent outcome that you see. So the more you give, the more result, or the more biological processes that you're interacting with.
Now, with this is my critical care, I guess, training, things that are so ingrained in me that's hard to let go of. We think about some things being beneficial, but too much of anything may be harmful.
Yep.
And when we look in this peptide science, at least from some of the things that I've seen, a lot of it's based on really small trials, small case studies, and maybe based on some theoretical benefits based on a mechanism instead of a large human trial. So going back to your very first one, we're talking about BPC, of healing and recovery. And I've heard a lot of really great anecdotal things about how this works.
Mm-hmm.
One of the mechanisms, I believe, if I'm correct here, is promoting angiogenesis, right, into new blood vessel formation. So, some of my concerns, for instance, if there's an undiagnosed cancer, could this fuel growth of that? And
yes,
patients appropriately as we're looking at some of these things, how do we actually know what to screen for?
That is a great question, and it is one of the questions that I would say you should be discussing with your clients as you discuss peptides and shouldn't I, do we do this or not? That's part of your conversation. Is there a chance that you're risk assessing? So that's the language that we speak in medicine, right?
Yes, it's all risk versus benefit. So
Mm-hmm.
and we're looking at using things that are not FDA approved. And even if these do move forward and are allowed to be compound, they're still not FDA approved drug.
Right.
And then prescribe these to your patient.
That's another major question. So yeah, I don't want to claim to have that answer, right? I think that is part of the conversation. You're always leveraging your risk and reward, what we know to be true, and then the space of this might not turn out great, but then it might turn out wonderful. So here's what we know, here's what we don't know. It's the patient's right to choose for their own body what they put in it or don't. If you're facilitating it, you're responsible for it. So there's a lot there. I hate to even make it like a non-answer, right? But it's a big question.
I don't think there's a black and white answer.
Mm-mm.
You don't have your attorney can give you a straightforward answer.
I think they'll say no, but it's their job, right? As attorneys, don't you think?
In our business class, your attorney's job, the best way they can protect you 100%.
Yes.
Tell you not to do it. To say no.
Correct. Yeah.
As a provider, as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, we have to think about that risk reward and whether
always
we really think we're doing what's in the best interest of the patient, the best results, what's in the best interest for our business operations, and
Mm-hmm.
us to push the attorney.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I hear you, but now I want you to find a way to make this compliant because I'm moving forward with it anyway. And they're
Yes.
for you, and that is your job to push back. So I do think
Right.
that's the way to say no.
Mm-hmm.
To me, a big part of this is with any discussion, we have to have a true informed consent. That's part of the process, and that's something.
Yes.
And the science course. So that course Dr. Beaver's developed, I think, is 8 or 10 hours. It's an extensive course that gets into each one of these individually.
That's
Their
great.
receptors, the mechanism, the contraindications, why they're doing these things. And I think it's up to us to not just hype up the good thing, but also tell the patients the
Yes.
bad thing, because it is their right to make that choice.
Yes.
And as providers, we're guiding them. And so I think that's where it comes into a thorough informed consent. And you kind of, talked about that. I know that you and I are in a line with that. So we didn't really practice the webinar because I want it to be a true, like, authentic conversation. And I think the main thing is that we're truly informing.
Mm-hmm. No. When I was in my residency, there was this one attending. She was probably in her 70s or 80s. She was up there, but very, very active and fit. I don't know if she took peptides or not, but she was very much into research. And so if you walk into her office, you're leaving with a research paper. You are walking out. She's going to print some. Oh, here, let me just get this for you. I find myself sort of doing that more and more. So I think that's really what it looks like, because it's not my opinion. These things that we're discussing, it's just, I feel like I'm the Siri of medicine in a sense. So I'm going to tell you what I know based on what you ask me, and then we're going to look at what is there. And then here's in your hand, or I can send it by PDF. We can do email now. So those are I would say that's my style, and to really focus on the science and not my opinion.
Yeah. So when we look at that and we look at the ones that are on the screen now in these categories, what would you say is the biggest demand that you get requested for now in their practice?
Oh, definitely in the metabolic category. The tirzepatide, semaglutide, I feel like that one is pretty popular, but the tirzepatide and retatrutide they're winning right now.
Yeah, and so it is very fascinating for those of you. Obviously, everyone on here is interested in peptides, or they wouldn't have signed to this particular webinar. But a lot of you have aesthetic practices as well.
Mm-hmm.
And when we look at some of the state of the industry reports and look at what's going on in aesthetics, we know now that a lot of the practices that are actually growing or thriving at this point in time are ones that are incorporating functional medicine into their practice or some sort of peptide therapies. And I'll tell you, again, for us, it was one of the things I didn't necessarily embrace early on with the GLPs. I saw us as an aesthetic only practice. And then when we look at our biggest lead source and our biggest new patient acquisition, they're coming from patients that are interested in weight loss with peptides. And now we convert them as all the other things that we do in aesthetics. And so I do think, I see that as well in my practice, and I still think that is a huge boom.
Yes.
But I also very closely see some of these others kind of coming along. We're getting a lot more requests about, especially some of the skin stuff, like the GHK copper and those things
Which is wonderful.
Now, when we look at this, there's different categories. And before we leave this slide, that's the other thing I want to talk about, because I think we say peptides in a big category, but then there's this small group that the FDA is talking about taking off. And so we're going to have some of those that are not even on that list, and we still may use, and then some that are not. And so I want to point that out at this point before we kind of continue going to the slides. We kind of mix them all together. And so I don't think, I know me personally, I'm not recommending which ones you choose to use. I think it's our job to know
know about it,
what the peptides do. And then you can decide where you want to position your practice, where you want to source your peptides. We do get some recommendations in our courses and work with some great compounding pharmacies. But I think that will be up to the individual provider to kind of stay aware of all those things, because even everything we see on this screen here is changing as we speak.
Rapidly. It's insane. Hey, you know what I noticed really quick? For whenever I was doing my malpractice insurance application, they ask you specifically if you prescribe these. And then they ask you which ones, if you do, what are your forms? And I mean, it was pretty extensive, and my price jumped from $7,000 to $14,000. So I don't know if that's normal. It was just profound. So your risk goes up.
Those insurance rates are usually based on your state and your location. I can tell you mine is not near that. But it's, I am covered in multiple locations, but Florida typically is a little bit cheaper than California. with your liability insurance. Then when you add locations, it goes up. But it is fascinating because this is not the only thing they'll ask about. And over the years, we've seen that. One of my biggest, the most significant jumps that I actually discontinued to service because the insurance was so high was for laser tattoo removal.
Really? That's shocking, actually.
And it was this was, I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago. We've done laser tattoo removal for a while. And I guess there was a bunch of lawsuits, or maybe people got scarred. I don't know what all happened. Not with us. We never had any, knock on wood. But I guess nationally, the insurance identified that as a high risk area. And so they more than doubled the premium. So when I looked at how much laser tattoo we were doing, I was like, no, it's not worth it for the premium. Then it came down a few years later. So it is not uncommon for insurers to weigh risks, their own risks, and things like this to really kind of like charge a higher premium for you to do it. That's why I wanted to point that out on this particular slide.
Oh, yes.
One of the things that will go into your decision as a provider is to which ones that you'll prescribe. Also, sometimes they'll ask, what is your source for these? And they want to know how you're sourcing things and you're giving it to the patient.
Yes.
And maybe they're only going to cover ones that are through like some of these compounding pharmacies, right? We don't know where that will go. But when they get restrictions such as that, or they may say, hey.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
For you.
Yeah, wild. And they even looked at my so they'll look at your Instagram, they'll look at your website. Yeah. Fun facts.
Fun fact. One thing to be in a practice owner.
Yep.
So, when we look at this, really, should we be excited or should we be afraid?
Excited.
Excited. Yeah. I'm excited. You convinced me to be excited.
No, you should be. This is so innovative. It just needs time and money.
To some degree, with different oil formulations and things that maybe not as regulated, but more seen as nutritional supplements than some of the injectables. And so I've been a little bit more, worried with some of that. But definitely it's an exciting time. I agree with you. So when patients here or providers here, peptides are banned, what's really true about that?
Is that rhetorical or it's for me? It depends on which guy you're asking. So yeah, legally they are banned. They say they're banned, if FDA says it's banned, right? And then your state laws, that's a different, every state has their own situations that they outline mostly clearly. There's some gray spaces, which we, I guess, are kind of talking about one. And then there's the medical board of each state, which they don't always agree with the state. They don't always agree with the FDA. So you're really, my takeaway from all of these different authorities is, are you providing a treatment that you can stand behind? Can you justify the safety? Can you justify the patient is truly like deciding, and it was like it's a patient guided decision with science and education.
It's really true that they're banned. There are some things that have.
It sounds aggressive, right? Banned. Yeah.
Well, patients and providers put it all into one category.
It's
not a general category. Like these have actually FDA approved peptides, like you said, insulin.
Right.
We have the Zepbound, and we have, the Wegovy. So we have peptides that are FDA approved and prescribed. Some that have been removed from the banned list, but are not approved peptides. And then we have some that are banned. And so I think it's the knowledge of which peptides fall into which category.
Yes.
And you make decisions about what to bring into your practice. So it's not as easy as just understanding they're all banned. And that's where a more comprehensive course that you can go through details of peptides and understand if a patient comes in and they've ordered it from Amazon, what are the effects of that peptide? It doesn't mean I'm prescribing it or recommending it.
Exactly.
I'm not going to deal with my treatment plan. And, that's across the board, whether we're doing aesthetics. I had somebody tell me they wouldn't do their anesthesia because they were on MOTC and maybe BP 157, and they wouldn't do it if they haven't been off of it for 2 weeks. And that's not based on, that's a lack of understanding about the peptides and
Right.
anything adjustable to any peptide.
Yeah.
So I think that's where it's important to educate your patients on, you may run into some barriers if we're
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and you have to actually even know to ask for this information from clients because they don't want to tell you. They feel a level of shame. Honestly, I find a lot of people feel embarrassed almost as if it's shady. To me, it's science. I have a research background. I enjoy talking about it. So I do ask clients. And I've personally been denied a laser treatment one time early on for taking melanotan. So, in those situations, just know there's a lot of different things out there. So you're going to have to ask and be, I would say, well versed in what these do. Like if you're doing anything aesthetic, injectables, and they're on GHK copper, they might have more bleeding than normal. So those are going to affect their outcomes.
And then we look at this next statement, which is, I think this is like been around for a long time. Compounded is unsafe, right? We both think that you have to compound it. I'm very happy that we have made progress in this arena.
Yeah.
I don't think at this point in time that that's as big of a concern. I can remember 10 years ago, if you had to get something compounded, the patients just thought that this is not the real thing. It's not the real drug. I think the key is working with
Mm-hmm. Excellent.
That's part of our practice
Yeah.
daily.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think the providers may be more aware of this now, but I think the patients still need some education that this is a way that we can give them very customized drugs, medications, peptides that are appropriate for them individually.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a one size fits all, that we can really do a tailored approach to their medical care.
Yes. Oh, I was just going to mention, whenever I think of the word ban, I guess the next question that should populate is from what category, right? Or says who, from what authority, what category, and then what do we make of that? What does that mean? Because there's a lot of nuanced legal language that is crossing into medicine that is challenging to really, make that palatable and workable.
Yeah. And then the other thing gets into who can prescribe this, right?
Yes.
And that's not necessarily the case with this.
Right.
Now, this goes from who we're prescribing it to, and really a lot of state scope of practice laws and delegation laws.
Mm-hmm.
And so you got to make sure that that's, to me, more of something that I say, do your due diligence in each state and make sure that this is within your.
I love that.
And, the reality is that a lot of this gets into the compounding rules
Mm-hmm.
and how we compound things. And if a drug is available in an FDA approved format, the only way that this can legally be compounded is that there is something that patient is sensitive to, something that maybe they're allergic to, or we want a different thing.
A justification. Yeah.
A justification, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's important as providers we don't forget that, because your scope of practice is one thing, but then protecting the reason that you're doing this, you need to justify that. You need to have it in your medical record. It's part of not necessarily the patient-facing side, but if you have some sort of regulatory body then that comes in, that you're justifying why.
Mm-hmm. And I feel like the compound pharmacies, especially the larger ones that most of you guys would likely work with, they do, in my opinion, a good job with giving you the documents that you need. You have to check mark the reason that you're requesting the compounded medication. So, like maybe patient has an allergy to grapeseed oil, so you have to substitute it. So you're really able to modify, or this person has a nutrition deficiency, so they must have B12 mixed with it. So there's those sort of things, but it's on their. A lot of them have that in their process, which I like.
Yeah. So when we look at some of the FDA things that have been going on with them, we know in April of this year they removed 6 major peptides out of this prohibited category. So we had BPC1, BQ7, TB500, KBB, MOTC, CMAX, and Abidalon from the category 2. Basically, they have prohibited their ability to be compounded for a few years now. Now, I think the point here is to say that just because they were removed from the prohibited doesn't mean that they're okay. It just says they're no longer prohibited. And there was just a meeting, and the advisory panel voted to approve, I think, all of these except it's not on here. There was a 7th one that they were voting on that they didn't vote to move forward with. But these 6, I believe, were then voted to recommend that the FDA actually allows them to be compounded. So there's still multiple more steps involved. Prominent, and maybe you know more about this than I do, but the most prominent is just because the committee voted to said that we approve these doesn't mean approval. It means the committee recommendation was approval. Now it has to go and get the actual FDA and the Secretary of Health and Human Services to sign off on it, which it appears likely that will occur.
Yes. Very interesting to know that process, right?
Yeah, it's a process that we don't think about.
Yeah.
And then this can move forward
Mm-hmm.
with states being able to put restrictions in place that are more restrictive than federal. They can't be less restrictive, but they can be more restrictive.
Yes.
And that's where it's important for all of us. And as we teach our classes, we will be staying up to date on all of this and doing our best to keep you guys informed. But there's multiple steps before we can now move this forward and officially say, yeah, these are okay to be.
I find it interesting that if you track the entry of a substance, the active substance arrives to wherever, whatever port it comes in through in the US, and that substance gets registered. And then from there, it has like a whole circuit that it goes through, different authority checkpoints. And so, and then in this scenario, it gets nominated. Just like we nominate people for a position, the substance gets nominated. So that's really what happened. And recently, so the substances were nominated, and then they did this vote. And so now, does the FDA choose to move it forward? I hope so. Yeah.
I hope so, because we're looking for ways to get our patients more access to these.
Yes.
As I think that we're on the precipice of this new therapies that are going to be able to, you can obtain them through compounding pharmacies. They're no longer going to have to go to maybe unauthorized sources, maybe get things that have no peptides in it at all. We've read these stories and you check them, and we're getting them from somewhere that there's actually no active peptide in it.
Right.
That we can go to a legitimate source, to a compounding pharmacy that can verify these things, and we know what we're getting. So there's some exciting things on the horizon. But we have to understand each peptide first. We have to know the science behind why we're going to use it. So
yes.
We're ready when those changes occur, that we can be able to quickly.
May I tell you a quick question that I just received as I walked into this room? So one of the camera guys, he's like, so I have a peptide. It's 30 milligram of retatrutide, and I added 2 cc's. Sorry to sidetrack us. I added 2 cc's of backwater, and then I drew up 25 units. I was like, okay. So what's the question? He's like, is that okay? I'm like, you mean, are you going to die? Well, so, I mean, that is a beautiful question. I love it so much because it is just, the first thing that stood out to me is you're seeing these high milligram peptides in small vials. So it feels like when people add a little bit and it dissolves, you're good. So I think there's a lot of education in that space that I think we, really should, or we do talk about, right? That's in the course. So I love that we cover it. Yeah.
You show the process. I find it fascinating as we were developing it. Part of my role as CMO at Empire is to really work closely with Dr. Cosentino, the marketing team, and decide where we're going with new courses and how extensive we're going to be, how many hours to put into that. And we do that by a lot of different ways. One is feedback from the providers, feedback from people on this like webinar, things like this. We get
Yes.
feedback. But the other thing is looking at what providers and what people are searching for. And so we have an incredible marketing team that's able to research this. And the search volume for peptides and peptide calculators is tremendous. And we kind of had this little debate in the office because I was like, guys,
Ooh, let's hear.
volume that's high is not so much because of the providers.
Mm-hmm.
Medical providers understand reconstitution. Most medical providers can divide the number of milligrams by the number of milliliters of fluid they put in and decide what that concentration is. I think what's happening is patients are ordering.
Oh, absolutely. And then they bring it into the office like shamelessly. Here's some outside peptides. Can you mix it? No. No.
Huge search volume, but to piggyback on that, I think it's really an opportunity for providers to educate patients and for us to bring that into our practice. And I was like, yeah, those calculators,
they glitch.
They glitch, but all those things can occur, yes. But I think the more important part is get educated as a provider.
Mm-hmm.
So you understand, you can check that calculator. You can make those determinations just like we learned how to dose antibiotics or vasopressors, or all the things we learn in our basic training.
You're exactly right. Yeah. Yeah. You have to recognize when it's wrong. That is where I want everybody to be at.
And that I'm so excited about being part of is the development of that. So to see that, we have, tons of content now already, and we're expanding it even further, looking at some, pharmacy colleagues and healthcare attorneys to help us navigate some of these things.
Love it.
We get to know a lot. And it's like, no, as providers, we need attorneys, they don't do it. And I'm like, I'm going to design a class with an attorney that understands. I'm not asking you to be my attorney. I want you to help us develop a pathway that our students, our consumers can really learn how to bring this compliantly into their practice.
Yeah, that's so needed.
Let's talk about GLPs a bit. I know that you do this. I know you said it's your number one thing. Did you have an issue when they took it off the top?
Who, me? So, yeah, I think you can get what you need. I work with scientists, so I wouldn't say that I'm a normal person to ask. And then globally connected in a sense, there's a lot of options that, I mean, you guys go to conferences, you meet people, they're incredibly brilliant, and they have labs, and there's a lot to say about that. But I think it's a personal choice, right? Like where you get your products, and it's a judgment call. It is, where do you live? Where are you doing your client services at? All of that is part of that decision.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so with this, I think what we struggled with is when there was a shortage, it was easy for us to order through a compounding pharmacy, and we could do that because there was a shortage that was allowed to be compounded. But the minute that
it was removed,
they were removed, the big pharma wanted to protect their patent,
yes,
on their drug making process, and I get it. They spend a lot of money in drug development, research, and development.
Yeah,
a few years to make that money back, and so we see it with many other products, drugs. Like if we develop something,
right, me too.
The gap is that it leaves patients with an effective therapy that is out of the pipeline. Our providers and practices, we struggle with how do we now transition people who are getting this for a much lower price point that had a pretty high margin for our practice. So we were able to bring them in, give them an effective, safe therapy, and maintain a healthy margin for our practices. Now, all of a sudden, the drug companies were charging more money for a month's supply than most of us were charging for the medication and the management. And so we had to be creative, I think, in ways that we can be compliant. And so I know for us, that meant going to the actual drug companies and doing some of the things with them directly, their patient. And prescription programs where they have savings cards and different the things that they.
I didn't have any luck with the savings card. I personally didn't have luck with whenever I would give the cards. It seems like the pharmacies have to be compliant and willing to accept that document.
It's true. It was difficult in the beginning. I will tell you recently.
It's paperwork, I think.
It's super easy, and I don't want to
Okay.
put any particular, particular company on here, but I can tell you through the two major ones, you simply fax the prescription.
Oh,
They deal with it
okay.
point for the patient forward. They set up a portal and they order and it automatically comes. And so
That's great.
we were able to stay compliant. We're able to give it to them for a fairly affordable price.
Mm-hmm.
However, we still use compounded.
Mm-hmm.
There are some compounds that are appropriate.
Yes.
For formulation are the additives that are in it.
Right.
And we have to be aware that always adding something doesn't necessarily mean that
it's better. Right.
And so I think working with accredited pharmacies helps protect you in some manner because they
Yes. No one wants to, right.
know.
Yes.
And so I think that's where we still have we've been able to be successful, but it was challenging and
Mm-hmm.
challenging makes people shy away.
Yes. Oh, you know what else I did at that time? So the reps, you just get really good friends with the reps of the pharmaceutical companies, and that was a must. I think that was really important. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Instead of shying away from things that are challenging, embrace the challenge,
Mm-hmm.
find ways to be compliant. And that's kind of what I coach is you can build really successful practices that are compliant.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we always want to do because we want to build a solid foundation. So number one, we're not putting ourselves at risk, our patients at risk, but also we're building a solid practice in case we ever want to exit that practice in some way.
Yes.
And so this has been a challenge for a lot of people, and it's interesting because we can see that. Here's a couple of cases here that we'll go over, and then we'll get into the questions from our students. I think that's going to be kind of an interesting part.
Mm-hmm.
This, is looking at a compounder that was criminally prosecuted for distributing unapproved peptides, including EDC 157 and CJC. And they had a $1.79 million in forfeiture, a lifetime prescription drug ban, and criminal penalties for the owner. So these are not all just civil. That's what we worry about is civil charges. But when we really go out of bounds and decide that we're going to do something on our own without investing in the proper education resources and partnering with people who do know how to guide us through in a compliant manner.
Yes.
We do have risk. We put ourselves at risk. So, for all of you that are on here and listening to it, don't be afraid of it. Invest in the education so you can learn how to incorporate it into your practice.
Mm-hmm.
The other one is the case here is a prescriber. And this is a recent case. And this was a physician that introduced a non-FDA approved peptide sourced from China into interstate commerce and was selling them to, unwitting patients. All kinds of things that you can see on here that are crazy. If you go down these, I love to do this for the business class that we teach. And I go into all kinds of weird compliance things where people have lost lots of money. Peptides are the hot thing right now.
Mm-hmm.
But I can tell you where there's been, hundreds of thousands of dollars in fines for medical practices not having a website that was ADA compliant because some
Wow.
did a search and they looked literally for practices that weren't ADA compliant. Where it goes on and on.
Yes.
So don't be afraid. Educate yourself.
I love that. That's exactly right. There's so many rules. We're not possibly capable to know every single one of those, but obviously do the best you can. There's a diligence that is expected, especially as medical professionals. So, and then there's the legal team you could always seek counsel, but I personally like to enlist or enroll into different newsletters. So with FDA, DOJ, different pharmacies, the bigger ones, such as in Texas. I don't know if I can say name brands on here, but they have really good up-to-date newsletters and even like the app on our phone, like Hippocrates. A lot of them, they just hit your email. No.
pharmacists. I will tell you that ones that we've worked with at Empire Medical Training and that have been vendor partners with us and that do have 503A and B accredited lines. One of the larger ones that we work with is Empower Pharmacy. I don't know if that's the one.
Exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. And we work with Olympia, and it was originally in Florida. Now they have multiple locations, and we work with Anazao Health. And those are all, if you guys are Empire students, vendor partners that we've worked with in the past. Olympia is our biggest partner right now in the compounding pharmacy space. Certainly, as a Empire student, as an Empire member, we have a lot of vendor relations and vendor partners, including in the peptide space. And so some compounding pharmacies, some private peptide companies. And for those of you who are members, Fallon can talk to you about it if you don't know how to access it, but it's in your portal. We've talked some about this slide already, the regulatory outlook, where we think this is going. We really think it's going to be release this a whole host of things that we can do with patients through a more compliant manner, that it's a small group of peptides that we don't have to be as worried about. There's a larger group of peptides out there that do amazing things that's still kind of in this gray area. And really, that's where I think that this whole course that's being developed. So not course, I shouldn't say that. This whole certification pathway that's we already have the courses out there.
I did, which was so fun. Yes, in New York. I can't wait.
New version. So we're expanding on this month after month. We're adding things to that curriculum that will lead to a whole certification pathway, starting with a class that Dr. Beaver's really, like I said, I think it's over 10 hours of content, getting into each one of these from a science standpoint into what is the peptide, what is the receptor, why does it work, what are the potential side effects. So quite a bit of detail. And then we've got all sorts of case discussions, the actual how to mix, what things to do. I want to get into questions. I definitely don't want to take away from Val's time at the end or Rowan, because they have some amazing specials that I was surprised that the team at the office actually approved. Because they don't really get specials all the time.
They're so nice. I think they give best specials.
They do. They give specials all the time, but they don't give this good at a special.
Oh, she's popping in. Are we in trouble?
No, you're not in trouble at all. No.
Arguing the question now.
You are correct. This is an incredible special. And yes, I was like, did I hear you correctly? Is this really what we're offering? And as it was, this is what we're doing today. Okay, our first question. Alicia wants to know, how do I figure out effective stacks for different needs?
I'll answer it first, and then Valerie, you correct me if I'm wrong, right? It's fun.
It's so fun. Okay, go. Let's hear what you would do.
For me, it's to figure out effective stacks.
It's like I need to put my hair up for this.
The science of each peptide and make sure that we're working towards the same a common goal. So let's say, for instance, we have an inflammatory condition that we maybe gut related that is having effects that we're seeing on the skin. I would need to know what peptides could I use that could like subtle inflammation, what things could I use for gut health, and what things could I use for skin health. And I could now start looking at a stack of those things where I'm getting synergistic effect by using different peptides. But the patient may come in and simply say, I have this, I don't know, psoriatic plaques on my skin. And so I need to look now what's causing that. What are good things with autoimmune conditions? What are good things with gut health? And so to do that, I need to understand the actual science behind each of the peptides that I'm going to place in that stack. And I'm trying to do things synergistically. So I'm not using peptides that really maybe have the same effect on or work on a similar pathway.
Yes.
Aren't something that could be detrimental. That's my thought.
I love that answer. Yeah. And no, you're not wrong. No, you listened to the patient and you really thought like in a functional medicine format of the why am I seeing a skin presentation? What is what's actually causing that? And is there a cellular level of impact I could have with maybe boosting their mitochondrial health, right? So is there I like to listen for their probably you laid out very well. So what are the logistics of their life? What is their primary symptom that they're complaining about? Is it weight? What is their age? I would say a common client for me, probably 40s, 50s, peri to postmenopausal, if it's a female, just very tired, doesn't feel like themselves. And where do you start? Usually they hate the weight on themselves, and so GLP. If you do too much at once, people quit. They can't. So start low and slow and slowly stack.
But I also think with stacking, that's a good example too. I was just out of designing a stack. We know with GLP, there is not just fat loss, but there's muscle loss as well. We know with certain GLPs, maybe there's less muscle loss. If I was going to stack, I would say I'm going to put you on something for weight loss, but I'm also going to put you on something that helps maintain your muscle mass, right? Maybe if we're doing one of the ones in the growth hormone stimulating category at the same time we're doing the GLP, that would be, I would think, a pretty good combination where we're maintaining muscle mass or while we're also using something that we know could cause some muscle wasting as well as fat. And so we have to think of, is it skin, is it muscle, is it weight loss, is it metabolic?
Yes.
Aging, longevity. We all want.
Yes. Yeah. Maybe. Yeah. Yes, please. Yeah. Yes. It's a little, you do have to work in between all of your peptide administrations. But when it comes to starting somebody, they have, like, what can I get the most buy-in, the most benefit, the most reward, so that they're going to say, okay, I really liked what we did. Let's do what's next. So probably a GLP is a good starter, and then step into the muscle support. Although they should already be trying their best and working out, right, with a trainer. But nutrition, sleep, all of that stuff, obviously. But yeah, I feel like the energy stuff, that for me is later. I try to see how they do once we get inflammation down and the other stuff.
Yeah, I think
Wait.
when we stack too many things too quickly. The final note I'll move on this one for you. Then I point is it's hard to tell which one they're not doing. If they have a side effect, which one is that causing the side effect? So
Yes.
for us to unravel that, when we add one or two at a time, it's easier for us to separate out when something doesn't go well, what's causing that. All right, we'll go to the next one, Fallon.
All right, Melissa, she first said this conversation right now is so beneficial because the fear is real. This is back when we were talking about with the attorneys. The fear mongering that attorneys exude is overwhelming. With that being said, she would love some references for attorneys if you'd be able to help with that.
Absolutely. So I'm going to tell you this. This is maybe there'll be an Empire partner at some point. I don't get any money from them at all, but they will give you a discount if you basically use my name as a referral code, because I've worked with them for a long time, and at every major conference, and including Empire conferences, they allow me to recommend them. But I get zero money, so I just want to be clear about that. Referral fees or anything. But I use Bird Adato as the law firm, BYRD ADATTO. So it's a hyphenated name. And they're a law firm that has lawyers in all the states. And they're really good about a compliance check with your practice. And so that's the main thing they'll do with that code is they'll give you a free compliance check of your practice. It's a brief call. They give you like 30-minute intro. They kind of identify any big area risk. But what I found very beneficial about them, and the reason that I choose them, is I used a Florida healthcare administrative attorney for many years. And what I found was there were so many things in this cash-based arena, right? Whether it was aesthetics, weight loss, that anytime I had a question, they would have to research, and it would be hours of research. They would bill me at $500 an hour. And so the research that I would have to pay to get the answer was quite high. By working with a specific firm that has specializes in med spa law, they have a lot of just baseline knowledge that they can answer questions pretty quickly without extensive research because they deal with it in each state. And so I've moved from using a local attorney to using more this specialized law firm. And so that's, again, as a personal recommendation, not as an official Empire one. Valerie, I don't know if you have any that you recommend.
I do not, so I'd probably go with yours.
Type in the chat.
Yes, BYRD and hyphen ADATTO.
Beautiful. Thank you for that.
Great
All
question, though. And
Yes.
push the lawyer, because I'll tell you, I've worked with them for years. I pay a monthly retainer fee, so I can have.
I was going to ask you the price. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they have different levels, right? And I kind of have multiple different practices, and I
Mhm.
enough years that I'm on a program. I don't even know if they offer it anymore, but I pay a few thousand a month just to have access.
Mhm.
I have a lot of conversations, and even with that, they tell me no a lot. I can't tell you early on, I had business ideas that they would say no, and they would tell me the risk, and I would be afraid, and I wouldn't do it. I learned as I got more experience in business and to push back. And that's why I recommended that earlier. I'm not telling you to do anything illegal. I'm not ever telling you to ignore your attorney's advice. I'm
Yeah.
telling you they will tell you no a lot. And then you push
Mhm.
back on things that you really want to implement and say, I want you to help me.
Mhm. And have a great reason for your why. Yeah.
Tammy says people are ordering these peptides on the gray market on their own. If we act as a go-between or a broker, in a way, between them and the compounder, I would think that this would be certainly safer. But again, the risk is there. Compounding pharmacy recommendations, we did touch on that.
Yeah, certainly. Again, you have to know your individual state regulations, and
Yeah.
Dr. Civelli touched on this a little bit earlier. But I will tell you, I'm licensed in Alabama as well, and I got a letter from the Board of Medicine that was very clear that said this is absolutely you can't do it. You can't talk to your patients about it. You can't advise them on it. You can't have a health coach in your practice that's on your acting underneath you in some manner to remove yourself from the conversation. Talk to them about it.
Wrong.
My husband, Jerry, he's a nurse practitioner licensed in Alabama. He got a very similar letter that was basically like, you can't do this. So, yes, you are kind of a go-between, but you have to also be aware that even advising, coaching on some of these things, if you have a provider-patient relationship, could put you at some legal risk. So you would want to make sure that the minute you're starting to act as their provider, not as their friend, not as your cousin telling you about this, over, popcorn one night, that you have all your documents in place, your legal documentation, and you have a really good reason for why you're recommending something, and that you're not encouraging any sort of illegal use, because without you verifying the source, it could be problematic. So certainly I do think working with accredited compounding pharmacies mitigates that risk to a great degree.
Mhm. But they're going to bring in their stuff and ask you. So be ready for it. And I mean, I typically don't.
Perfect. Chris wants to know, are there any charts available that show which peptides are compatible?
I will answer this one by saying your pharmacy will tell you. So I wouldn't trust any chart that's out there that would be just free information. That's in the medical. Yeah, that would be probably in the vault of you have to. Yeah, the pharmacy. I mean, NAD.
But NAD is not really a peptide. That's what I was thinking. It's a vitamin rather than a peptide, right?
It falls in the category of peptides. So the best answer I want to say is the size. Okay, so if we zoom out from the language of it, and we're just looking at how big is the structure. If it's less than 40 amino acids, it meets criteria. And then structurally, it has function when you drop it into the body. The size of it depends, that dictates how you absorb it and where you absorb it. So if a molecule is too big, you're not able to do sublingual. If it's too big structurally, it will cause problems in the blood vessel. It's not going to get to where it needs to go if it's too big for the bloodstream. Absorption through the skin. I mean, the size of it makes a difference. The delivery, the salt that it's with, all of that is that's the intellectual property of whoever designed it. Yeah.
And then I don't know of any that really are NAD being the exception, and I don't like I said. I think that's more of like the coenzyme or vitamin. I don't know again the structure specifically what category. I know it's sold as a peptide in many of the peptide online pharmacies, but I think technically it's more of like a coenzyme, part of one of the D vitamin processes. And but with that being said, that's the only thing I can think of that would be in an IV form. Like I don't know a reason. Those are the ones you deliver.
Glutathione.
Yeah, and again, it's more of an antioxidant, not. So I'm thinking of the peptides, the true peptides that we're really looking at. Mostly are delivered either intranasal, subcutaneous, and then some of the sublingual formulations. Again, very much dependent on the size and the proprietary way that the company has decided to package that to deliver it. Otherwise, you're just taking a Listerine strip.
Yes.
Yeah, no, maybe it tastes good, but does it really do it?
I hope it's minty. Yeah.
Yeah. And so again, that's what
I'm okay. NAD is not a peptide; it's a coenzyme. Thanks, Yuri. Thank you. Yeah. Oh, somebody. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was thinking like, yeah, it's not.
It gets thrown in there.
They sell it a lot as peptides.
Yeah.
Glutathione, you put it in that, and they put it in the package, but it's not. You're right. It's more of a. It's one of our body's major antioxidants, but it's not actually a peptide. They do mix a lot of things together, right? And so let's think about, like oxytocin, right? That's but they'll mix it when we talk about peptide stacks. Some of the ones that are like peptides mixed with like oxytocin, are even aminophylline. So there's some of those that like the PT141, the peptide with the oxytocin, with the aminophylline. So they're all acting on.
I'm not a fan of those.
No, but I'm just saying it's sold as a peptide when in reality it's
yes.
I think that's where there's some confusion amongst this, but
with the nomenclature.
I'm thinking about infusing our vitamins, our coenzymes, amino acids. We can infuse amino acids, and that is true. But the actual peptides that are these short chains that are acting on a receptor, I'm again just not familiar off the top of my head anyway. Maybe if we sit here and thought long enough, I could think of one. But the ones I'm most familiar with are not delivered in that manner.
Yeah, it's definitely not common.
Our next question, can you please speak to the efficacy and evidence of peptides in the pain practice, such as BPC 157 and TB 500? I have patients who are injecting this from sources online with backwater to areas of injury.
Good.
I don't use this at all for pain, so I can't comment on the pain components. I don't know, Valerie, do you use this for pain conditions at all in your practice?
Yeah, so the mechanisms, I'll just touch on that. It's very well, I would say, documented that it acts on multiple pathways, including the COX pathway, COX, and TNF alpha and IL-6, which we know those are your inflammation markers, right? Those are going to give you the pain signals, especially IL-6 to the brain. It crosses the blood-brain barrier. So those are targeted and reduced with BPC 157. Dose dependent, if you microdose it, like, and I say microdose, like 250 mcg is pretty typical for a maintenance, but loading doses are higher. A lot of people do report relief, and based on the pathways that we know that they affect, it does make sense.
Chris wants to know, what are your thoughts on sub-Q versus IM versus the transdermal delivery methods of single peptides?
To me, it depends on there's a lot of things with receptors here, right? And absorption. And so I think it depends on the individual peptide. It also depends on the delivery method. So meaning meaning their proprietary method. And so when we look at some of the sublingual, some of the oral, if it's going to be something that's inactivated at a low pH, something like in the stomach, then that oral is not going to be really effective. If it's sublingual, but it's too large and they don't have it,
suspended.
Try to do this suspended in a way that's going to improve the mucosal delivery. it's not going to be effective. And so, there are different ways to deliver everything. But when I look at something, let's talk about CMAX, right? I think that's best delivered transnasal. But there are forms that you can inject. There are forms that you can, but when we look at the nerves, the cranial nerves, and how they can be stimulated directly with the intranasal route, I believe that what I'm aware of at least is that one in particular is best intranasal.
That's probably what the compounding pharmacy, that's what they do. That's the art of it. Getting a proper base so that you can choose and offer to your client how they want their delivery system of that substance. And a lot of times it's price determined.
Yeah, I mean, price, obviously, sometimes that's going to be really important, especially with the bioavailability. So most of these are short acting. They stimulate something, and knowing that how they're absorbed in the bioavailability will be really your key to making sure that you're giving the best. And then I think most importantly, we started out this conversation with this: how fine are you giving it to your patient, and are they responding?
Yeah.
And so, you
Yeah,
have
that's good.
something that you went down this pathway to start with. And the best thing we can do is, ask, is it effective? And if it's not effective, why are we continuing it? Or do we need to change the route? Is there something about the site they're delivering it, right? And so when we look at repeated sub-Q injections in certain areas, if they're scarred areas or fibrotic areas, even if the patient's injecting it properly, they may not get the same results. And so that's why it's important that I think we evaluate the patient and not just stick with this is the way it's written, so we have to do it. And that is the beauty of working with compounding pharmacies to find alternate delivery routes that help the patient remain compliant and get results. For me, a big thing is travel. I travel extensively for lecturing, and that most of them are refrigerated that are sub-Q injections. I can't travel with that. It makes it very complex. So to me, finding a really good sublingual way of delivering this, something that I could travel with. And so I'll use the sub-Q when I'm at home. And when I travel, I use the little oral strips. And so I think, working with your patient, their lifestyle, their life, what they can be compliant with, and then monitoring their results.
Okay.
Yeah.
This next question is about advertising for peptides. So how would you safely advertise for peptides?
My recommendation, and really it's not even my recommendation, this is what the FDA says. You cannot claim that it does any specific thing. So tirzepatide, for example, is FDA approved for weight loss and for diabetes. So if you make those statements, proper, right? But if you say that they are anti-inflammatory, that is our opinion right now. We don't have any blessing from FDA that allows us to advertise that. So I would just steer away from making claims.
So, guided by, regulated by in this industry a little bit more than some of the traditional marketing that we think about for other industries. Basically, they see us as experts, right? And so they're saying that we have this influence over patients, over consumers, because they're trusting us as an expert. And so exactly everything that Dr. Civelli just mentioned is true. We cannot make unsubstantiated claims. However, we can talk about the mechanism. We can talk about what is GHK copper, what is PT141. So what receptors does this work on? And so we're not saying that BPC157 is a cure for IBS, but we can talk about how BPC157. And so I think is the way I would recommend marketing that.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of things that we do in our business and marketing class where we try to help you remain compliant, because it's not just this. This is one area of regulatory risk. We have to be careful with the way that we advertise anything that's not an FDA approved treatment that we're using in an off-label manner.
Right.
Even down to when we use some of the terms that, like the actual drug terms like Botox or Dysport, and we're using them that may not be approved areas, but why are we using them? So we can talk about mechanism, we can educate patients. I think the more education we put out there, that in and of itself is marketing. So we certainly have ways that we can do that, but we can't advertise it as a cure, as a definitive, medication for that. You gave a great example of that. We really just cannot claim something that is not true. And it may be true in the future. We may have proof of that in the future and get that. And we have research studies and we have case reports to back our decision and talk about that with the patients. But we can't state it as fact until they've actually accepted it.
Mary wants to know, where does Florida fall in the peptide world? Is it more of a peptide friendly state?
I would say it's more friendly. It's a friend.
I think it's definitely more friendly. There are some regulatory challenges in Florida, but overall, it's much more friendly than a lot of the states in the Southeast. And so when we look at that in general, the states in the Southeast, in general, so like, I don't want to just say one, but like Alabama, Georgia, Louisiana, they have pretty conservative medical boards. They, in general, a little bit stricter with some regulatory things, and so you have to be cautious. Florida, when we kind of carve it out of that, is a little bit more progressive. And so then when we look at, I hate to use that term because people think about politics, and I'm not talking about politics, but with some of the medical things, they're a little bit less restricted than some of the areas around us, which is weird because people think about it being the Wild West, and they think anybody can do anything. And I'm like, actually, in Alabama, their practitioners only within the past few months gained the ability to inject Botox in 3 locations.
Wow.
They can't inject anywhere else. They can't be off label, and they still can't inject filler. So they can be pretty strict in the South. Florida in general is really outside.
Someone asked about Arizona. I would imagine Arizona follows California. The boards seem to follow each other.
Yeah, I would always check with individual states. I don't, there's no way I remember all the laws. Certainly there are things you can find, online about that. And certainly know your individual state laws.
Perfect. This question is for you, Dr. Civelli. What institution did you obtain your functional medicine and regenerative medicine board certification? This person is also interested in becoming certified.
Sure. I did the A4M, but we are offering that soon, coming very soon at Empire.
We already actually, you can take your initial classes now. Part of that process involved actually submitting cases and having those cases reviewed. And so we've been in the back end arranging that at Empire of how you can actually obtain that.
This is a great question. Emily wants to know, is there any research being done on peptide use during pregnancy?
No.
I mean, nobody wants to touch pregnancy. What goes wrong with the pregnancy?
Yeah.
There's such a long statute of limitations. Birth defects you are on the hook as a medical provider for until that child is an adult and so literally all the way down to Botox in pregnancy, right? It's like most of us will tell you this is a localized, very concentrated, small dose neurotoxin that affects locally, not systemically. But they will not research those sorts of things in pregnancy because of all of the complex things that entail.
Perfect.
Now, let me also pause a minute there. So I'm not aware of that. I do know that there is some research ongoing with fertility, very different than pregnancy. And so they're looking at some of the ones that may have some potential anti-inflammatory effects. And if it improves your fertility, some of this actually came out of looking at impacts like pregnancy rates and fertility rates with this surge of GLP usage.
You're right.
Flip side of that coin is that it's also, there's concern that maybe some of the oral contraceptives are not as effective because of the delayed transit through the GI tract and the absorption. And so there's some mixed data on that, but there definitely are some studies looking at causes of infertility and which one of these may be beneficial for that. But I'm not aware of anything. Usually it's quite complex to get studies and trials approved in pregnant patients. And so we're trying to get this used in non-pregnant patients now. So I think
No, it's gonna happen in our lifetime. Oh, no, 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 no. The rest of it. The approval for the rest of it. I didn't know. No, I think that is not in our lifetime. No one's doing that one. Sorry, small heart attack cleared the air.
Perfect. We have a couple questions. What are good resources or publications to stay up to date on research, stay up to date with the research on the peptides?
As far as like the regulations or the actual like science?
All of the things. Everyone wants to know where to find the best literature for peptides, all of it.
That was my short list. Oh, that's the short list. Yeah, I did my best to cut it down. But I think further, okay, so yes, Empire, and then you can just look up who owns certain substances, because think of it again like an art. Somebody has created this chemical structure. Some of them are found in nature, so somebody has identified it, somebody's put a patent on it. So there's a lot of things that are owned by a company. And if that's true, then just you go to that company's website and then they will have all of the trials. And .gov, I think, is another good resource. I like to read that in my free time.
and I may be confusing the name, so you gotta double check me on this, but it's like Journal of Peptide Science, and one that's just called Peptides, one's European and one's I think a US based, but it's like one's peptide, but one is like the Journal of Peptide Science. Those are both, I think, good resources. They're just dedicated to peptides, the whole journal. And so I think those are good if you just want to look at journals and keep up on research. Um, and then, like I said, I think that the key is understanding why we're using these. So understanding the very basics of it. So when you read the journal, it's relevant as to why they're actually performing some of the.
I like to look at the year it was done, who did it. It needs to be a first world authority that's come up.
Case of 5. And so coming from traditional medical training, especially like ICU and critical care, we're used to seeing large scale randomized controlled
Like heart stuff, right? Yeah.
and we got to start with getting some of these things through some of the necessary, approvals. We can even get access or get well-designed trials and some sort of independently funded mechanism where more of these studies can be done, because part of this is there's not lots of, big pharma hasn't been interested. And so there hasn't been lots of money poured into it. So you have
Right.
GLPs, and now we saw with that, they went from 1 receptor to 2 to 3 to 4. And so now that they're seeing money in it, there's a lot more research being poured into that category. And so then we are getting more information out there through these larger trials. But a lot of these journals, when you read them, it's a lot of mechanism, science, like why it works, small case study.
You know which field has to really survive on I guess similar breadcrumbs is infectious disease. It's a lot of case studies, small reported cases, handwritten, some of them, and that collectively there's a lot of meta-analysis that people will form guidelines after they all talk about it, agree on it, and then this becomes the guidelines. A lot of IDSA things are created through that pathway.
Two more questions. Amy wants to know, do we think that GHKCU becomes ineffective when mixed into blends like Glow and Clo?
I'm not aware of that, but I mean, again, I think there are a few things in that question. And so one is knowing the source of your compounding pharmacy. We can't say that now, because they actually research compatibility of these together, and they come up with new formulations all the time. I think I just saw one that has this in it from one of the oral companies that they were just introducing this week, and they were talking about some of the ways that they mix it to make it compatible and stable. You can get good bioavailability of this combined together in one strip. Before, they actually had them separated, and you would take a strip and then you would have to wait and take a strip like, 20 or 30 minutes later. So you didn't mix them together because of some absorption. So I think talking to the compounding pharmacy and understanding, how they mix this to make it stable. We know that there's certain, for a long time, there's some vitamins and amino acids that aren't stable together. But there are certain companies that have come up with a proprietary solution, the base solution that make them compatible. And as long as you don't change that and use it as provided, they're stable. The minute we add things to it, or if I just ordered those two ingredients on my own and mixed them, the base solutions would not be stable. So that's why it's important to work with a accredited, approved pharmacy. And that would be my recommendation, that not just to mix it on your own. If it's in a mix already made by a really a quality source, then probably they've done something to those solutions to make them stable together. Remember, these are all short amino acid sequences. We can mix them together in different ways, but we need to make sure that all the ways that we're doing that and reconstituting them, that they are stable, that we're actually delivering what we think we're delivering.
My reply to that, yeah, that's really good. And when you say the word stable, to me, that means stays in the solution. Because when it's not stable, I've found it, you see like a sediment. There's like a separation or some goop that it's not clear. So, and also the blue color is important. So if you don't see that, it's not stable or something's not right. The copper is not active. And my personal experience, it feels like you got punched in the wherever you put it. So very inflammatory, antigenic is the word. It gives a large welt, and based on how robust your immune system is, will really determine how, if you do or you don't react.
I'd like a couple more. Let me just look at one more. I see somebody said please answer.
Oh, maybe resend it.
Maybe one of you guys can pull that, and I'll answer Chris's here about office compounding laws, because I think this is a little bit off topic, and I'll just talk quickly on it. You have to make sure it's the number of ingredients that are in a mix. It's not the number of additives. Usually, if you're going to be a compounder, you have to follow all kind of the compounding laws. So this is not just a hood in a room. It's a special ISO Class 5 room. You have to do third-party testing to make sure that all the things, you're following all those rules. There's ways that you got to make that room, and part of that may include a laminar flow hood. I usually recommend for most med spas, most aesthetic practices, not to go down the compounding route. We want to be in the field of immediate dilution and delivery, which means we're adding the right number of ingredients to a bag, and we're either piggybacking using IV pushes, IM, or sub-Q doses where appropriate. We cover all of that in our IV therapy class. So we get into details on that. I'm blanking on the number right now. I say it all the time. I think it's, but there is an FDA compounding law that you can read yourself. I think it's called the USP 797.
Oh, you're right. Yeah. Good job. Okay. Yes.
Yeah. I talked about it a lot in that class. I'm just blanking the number. But anyway, you get that up and it gives you that whole, and it's extensive. And you really don't want to be in the area of a compounder, because they're going to hold you to similar regulations they would a compounding pharmacy. So just for delivering vitamin, we just want to do immediate reconstitution and delivery, which is usually 2 additives to your base solution. So like your saline with 2 additives. Yeah. Any other questions? Did you find the one?
Yes, I found Kennedy's question. Her question says, so as an RN who is contracted through a med spa provider, I am provided several different peptides, including GLP-1s to sell. I have several clients who come in each week to get a vial of peptide of a GLP-1 shot. I haven't found a clear answer on if this is appropriate way to do this. I have a consent they signed stating they are paying for my knowledge, not the peptides, and peptides are for research purposes only. But the vials do not have a patient name or require a prescription. or they don't have to be seen by the provider before giving the peptides. Do you have any insight or knowledge on that?
Let me clearly just say from the beginning, I'm not a healthcare attorney, so don't get legal advice, as we said.
Same.
I will tell you my thought on this. If you're acting as a healthcare provider, you're not acting as a health coach. You're a licensed individual, so you have a license that can be sanctioned. So if I'm just an entrepreneur or business owner and I open a peptide store and I'm letting people buy the peptides, I don't have anything necessarily to lose because I'm not seen as a healthcare provider or the healthcare coach. If you are educating, training, demonstrating how to give the injection, advising on the dose, the reconstitution, any of those things, you're now acting in a healthcare provider capacity. In that capacity, that you could have some legal liability. First and foremost, are you practicing medicine without a license? And so this comes up a lot where RNs administer things and give things without what's called a good faith exam. And so even this is with Botox. And so where they're administering injections without someone that has actually prescribed the injection. So technically, if an RN can inject in a state, that patient has to be seen by an NP, a PA, an MD, or somebody who has the ability to prescribe a treatment, and the RN is delivering the treatment. They're not actually doing the exam themselves, and there's a degree of latitude they have with where to administer those injections for the best cosmetic effect. Some states say there's no latitude at all. You have to do it exactly in this pattern. Other states say you can have some small degree of variability. Where I see a lot of compliance risk and a lot of people kind of get themselves into trouble is they assume that because they can do the injection, that means the state says it's okay. They may have great results. They may never get like turned in. But the example I use, it's like speeding on the interstate. You may speed on the interstate and never get a ticket, but the one time we get a ticket, then if we could be in big trouble. So be aware of that and protect your license. That's my main advice on that. Check with I would recommend checking with the healthcare administrative attorney, any of the ones that we recommended tonight, to see what your legal exposure is. Because if you're doing this on behalf of a non-licensed provider, so you're saying this is a business is giving you this and asking you to sell it, where do you fall into the of course your personal liability should something go wrong with that. So when it says research purposes and somebody has an adverse reaction, it's not the appropriate peptide, because if you say that you're not doing a medical evaluation, you're just selling the peptides, then what is your liability when they pick the wrong peptide or something goes wrong with that? And so that's where I would think you have some exposure. And I would recommend that you, check with one of those attorneys to understand fully the extent of your exposure in those circumstances. It sounds a bit risky to me, just to be perfectly honest.
You need to build in some breaks and process there.
Well, that is going to wrap us up. We will get the rest of the questions. I'll send those over and we'll get answers for those, and then we'll email that list back out. But in the sense of time, we should probably let everyone go because it's getting late where some people are.
Yeah. So for sure. Thank you guys all so much for joining in. Fallon, I'm going to let you tell them about this amazing offer. For those of you who want to take the classes, I'm, learning a lot myself with them.
It's $29.99.
for both classes.
Okay. That's awesome. Thank you so much. This was fun. Appreciate it.
This was a great webinar. It's been awesome. And I will see you guys again soon. But for everyone who has hung around with us tonight, as a thank you for joining, we are giving you a special offer. And clearly, it's a very good one. Everyone is surprised by it. We're offering both our peptide therapy screening course, which focuses on that introduction to the science behind the peptides and the regulations, because we know they're ever changing, and our brand new advanced clinical peptides training course with Dr. Civelli. This one goes in depth a little more with case studies and the clinical applications for these peptides for the combined price of $2,999. Each course standalone is an $1,899 course. So we're giving you a savings of $800 if you take advantage of this bundle. This is a special offer only for you guys who are here with us tonight. And it does expire Wednesday, August 12th. So you have 1 week to decide that you want in on this bundle and get it. We will reach out to you. You guys can reach out to us. I'm going to put our contact information in the chat. Roanne is also in the chat, gathering all of this information from you guys because everyone is interested in this special. With that being said, if you for some reason are only interested in one course, which they build off of each other, you definitely need to take both courses for that full peptide understanding. We will give you $200 off of the single courses. But again, take advantage of that bundle because it is an incredible deal. We do have peptide therapies training coming up in person on October 10th in New York City, October 30th in Dallas, and again in New York City on December 12th or December 4th, for the rest of the year. Those are the in-person training days. We have peptides. We have one more virtual peptide course upcoming, and that is on September 26th, which is a Saturday. So with that, guys, it is the time I'm going to give away now, which is so fun. I've never got to do this before. I'm going to give away one of our physicians' medical weight loss live stream courses. So I'm just going to close my eyes, scroll up through the chat, and where I stop, that person is getting this course. And that would be Heather Plavinsky. Heather, I will reach out to you and we will get you signed up for your weight loss course. You are the winner, and weight loss, of course, goes hand in hand with peptides. So that's why we chose this course tonight. So Heather, I will get in touch with you and we will get that course set up for you. All right. Thank you guys so much for joining us. I know it's been longer than most people expected, but it's a hot topic. Again, Dr. Civelli, thank you so much. It has been a pleasure.
Thank you so much. This was fun.